Hi, my name is George Eliadis. I'm a senior instructor and owner of the JKD Self-Defense Training Center located in Clifton Park, New York. And today what I'm going to talk about is the difference between the JKD straight punch and the typical, what we call like horizontal boxer's jab, or the karateka's horizontal fist. And why JKD practitioners gravitate to using the vertical fist over the horizontal. I am not saying that we don't use a horizontal fist, because we are limitless in this art, but I want you to kind of understand the logic between the differences between the two, essentially. So the reason why we kind of don't use the horizontal fist is the punch. When you do throw it, typically you're throwing in boxing, you're showing to throw the punch real straight and right like an arrow, okay, to come right out. But what ends up happening in a lot of boxers, when you start getting a little fatigued, the elbow has a tendency to flare out just a hair before that punch comes out. That can kind of give you away, especially if you're dealing with somebody who has a good level of awareness, all right? So that's one flaw of it, right? The other thing is that the radius and the ulna actually corkscrew over in this position like such. They line up in the vertical fist pattern better. So what ends up happening is they're just in a little bit of a weaker position. Bone alignment's a little bit off. I'm not saying that this punch doesn't hurt, okay? It does hurt, but by the same token, it's just a little bit structurally weaker, right? Another thing that could possibly be an issue with this is when you throw that horizontal punch, that elbow flares out. If somebody's a good grappler, they're going to have a tendency to get underneath your elbows a little bit easier. And if you have to counter them by dropping your elbows, because the number one rule of fighting is, or wrestling for that matter, is keep your elbows in. And you see a lot of people fighting like this. I don't care what art that you do. I've trained with Division I wrestlers. Guess what their coaches told them? Keep the elbows in. And you're going to go, why do I see fighters like this? I can't tell you. They have a tendency to fall apart. The good technically sound fighters like Anderson Silva is really keeping his elbows in. BJ Penn keeps his elbows in. That's what separates champions from, number 2 and number 3 contenders, essentially. All right. So when you're thinking about doing this horizontal punch, you can possibly expose yourself for a takedown a lot easier, the body lock, or somebody can get their underhooks in a lot easier too, right? This punch hurts on the tail end of the strike. So when I throw this strike, it hurts on the tail end, so it hurts right here. What happens is if somebody actually tries to jam the punch and shoots in, and you hit it right here, it gives out. Your punch does not have the same fortitude and power, because what happens is the rear delt is supporting that structure. And the rear delt is a very weak, it's not a very strong muscle, okay? So it gives out, it doesn't have the same power, right? Why do we use the vertical punch in JKD? It's less telegraphic. We use the bottom 3 knuckles to strike with, so when we hit, it goes straight out. The elbow maintains the center as it comes out, okay? So it goes real straight and out. Makes it a little bit harder to read. I would say the horizontal punch is a tad bit faster, but the JKD, the straight lead, the vertical punch hits harder, right? So I've been hit with both. I've trained with boxers. I also train obviously with JKD people. So that being said, this is a more structurally sound punch. The radius and the ulna, they line up in this position. Again, harder to read. That elbow doesn't flare out, so if somebody does shoot in, you can change and kind of keep your elbows in a little bit easier. Now, the final part of this, which makes it very important to kind of understand this, is that the punch, when the elbow is down, the shoulder girdle and the rear lat here is basically holding this in place, not the rear delt, which is a smaller muscle group. So when you hit someone, you can hit them from out here and rock them, and when you hit them right here in a short range, you can still rock them with this punch. So it has a little bit of room for error, and you can utilize it in a shorter range. Now, remember when you're thinking about this, I'm not saying that the horizontal punch is a horrible punch. It can be used to go around other strikes, okay? We do use a horizontal punch too. We're not sticking to this, but we also want to kind of understand that this is my main punch in JKD, and this is what I want to strike with. This is my main thing. So when you're looking at it from the art form, it goes straight out, straight back, okay? Some people have a tendency to do it with an arc, and I was taught that by a certain instructor. The only problem with that is people have a tendency, if they miss this punch, they don't have a recoup. Another original student of Bruce Lee had told me to stab with the hand in and straight back, and that Bruce had gotten rid of the short and arc. A little bit better recovery with that. So kind of think about that stuff. So We're not going to get into the details of who's better or which one's better. I'm just trying to give you an understanding of which has a little bit more punishing force and why we use it, and I hope you enjoyed that information.